So game number 5. Game number 5. This is the game between the two moderators. Jay Simmons, who is on the enemy team, is a mod for Joshi. And Ross the boss, is on Team Diamond Cutter and is a longtime mod and supporter of my channel. So this was one of the most highly anticipated games. I know these two guys were both in chat with a lot of banter. These guys were, there was some nice banter going on back and forth. So let's see the game. Let's see the game here. And I should say Ross the boss is, like me, he is heavily inspired by Eric Rosen. So I mean, if you're playing with the black pieces and you're inspired by Eric Rosen, we got a Stafford Gambit. Ladies and gentlemen, the first Stafford Gambit of the day. So this is, the classic Stafford move order. And Jay knows a good bit of theory. He knows a good bit of theory, so he plays the d3 bishop e2 setup, which I think is the most common reply to the Stafford, at least these days. Followed by c3 as well, which is the engine's top choice, and also by far the most commonly played move. Ross, of course, is happy to go into the magical variation. He knows his theory, so he puts the knight on g4. Here, the engine move and the main move is d4, but unfortunately, white castles. And this is where the Stafford starts to get really scary, is after queen h4 now, white's got to find only moves to stay alive. There's only one move that stays alive here, because of course black is threatening mate, black is threatening a bunch of, black is threatening to take on f2 if you play a move like h3, so you've got to take this knight. So Jay finds the only move, which is takes the knight, and after h takes g4, now the h file is open, and once again, there's only one move to stay alive. And Jay finds the only move to stay alive. You cannot play h3, because then after takes, you're just getting crushed. Finds the only move, which is bishop f4, only move to stay alive. And after bishop d6, once again, there's only one move to stay alive. There is one and only one move to stay alive here. And this time, Jay does not find it. So the move you've got to play here to stay alive is e5 to cut off the bishop from eyeing this bishop and also eyeing the h2 square. Unfortunately, Jay plays the move bishop g3. And this is now losing for white. So white has done a really good job of maintaining advantage, but now all of a sudden, black is completely winning. Why is black winning? Because after takes, well, if you take with the h-pawn, you're getting mated. So he takes with the f-pawn, and now takes on h2, king f2, and we reach the critical moment of the game. And this is the lesson I would like to take out of this game, is even in a blitz game, you've got to identify where your critical moments are. So in this position, Ross used 6 seconds. So he had 4 minutes 51 and he went down to 4:45 to play the move queen h6. Unfortunately, queen h6 is giving up most of your advantage. But there is exactly one move in this position that is crushing for black. So black to move and win the game. And I see Stephen Willie in the chat has already spotted this move. Yeah, the absolutely legendary move, rook h3. And okay, you might be sitting here and you might tell me, rook h3, how am I supposed to spot this move, right? Like rook h3 goes way over my head. I mean, I personally might not even find rook h3 in a game. So how do we find this move? And the answer to that question of how we find the move rook h3 is pattern recognition. So what do I mean by pattern recognition? Let's go back to the starting position. Well, okay, so we're in the starting position. Which of these 8 pawns is the weakest in black's camp? I'll pose this as a question for chat. Which of the 8 pawns in the starting positions is the weakest pawn? Just off of these, just off of the starting position, just off rip. Which pawn do you guys think is the weakest pawn? I'm sure most of you guys know the answer to this question. Yes, Ross says it's the f pawn. And Stephen Willie also saying it's the f pawn. Why is it the f pawn? Because all the other pawns are defended by a different piece. So h pawn is defended by rook. This pawn is defended. Let's skip the f pawn. The e pawn is defended a million times. The d pawn is defended a million times. C pawn is defended by the queen, B pawn is defended by the bishop, and A pawn is defended by the rook. So all of these are defended in a bunch of different ways. The only pawn that's defended by only a king is the F pawn. So what is the lesson we can take away from this? When pawns are defended only by the king, they are weak, and we should be looking to attack them. So now let's go back into the position of the game. And we identify two pawns here that are defended only by the king. So we play the move rook h... Well, we don't play the move queen h6. We play the move rook h3. And I think if you think of it in that aspect of which pawns are weak and what is weak in enemy territory, we can come up with the move rook h3 to say, there's actually no way of defending this g3 pawn. This g3 pawn is toast. There is no move that white can play to add a defender to the g-pawns. So after a move like king e1, for example, just queen takes g3, queen takes g2 also possible, and in the end, black is just completely winning this position. So I see a question in the chat from Jay saying, is rook h6 also possible? Let's ask the engine. So engine says rook h3 is the only move that's crushing, -9. Rook h6, it says, is also winning, but not quite as badly. -3 it gives. And I don't want to get too far down this rabbit hole, but it looks like rook h3 is the only move to get a significant advantage here for black. So we will continue on in this game with rook h3 was missed. In the end, Ross ended up playing queen h6 and unfortunately traded a lot of stuff where in this position, I mean, you've traded rooks, you've traded queens. And okay, I mean, white is up a pawn, but it's not the end of the world. Actually, I think material might even be equal. Yeah, material is actually completely equal here. So you had a great advantage, but still, it's the game's not over. I mean, material is quite equal here. White has a nasty strong center. And if we progress a little bit further, I think the critical mistake comes in a couple moves here, where you've got to keep this pawn guarding the d5 square, because pawn d5 is a big threat. Unfortunately, c5 creates a hole on d5. So white happily plays the move d5, which now this bishop can no longer defend the pawn. This rook is going to take this pawn gladly and probably go Pac-Manning on the 7th rank. So this position now is starting to fall apart for black. And Ross, who is a very aggressive, Stafford Gambit, very aggressive player, he just sacks the bishop. He just shoves this pawn forward with f5. Unfortunately, this is a little bit too ambitious. This is not exactly working. And after white weathers a few of the checks, this e-pawn is unstoppable. And Jay correctly recognizes that the pawn is unstoppable. And we get into a position here with rook h7, but there's no more checks. And also in Eric Rosen's style, Ross is looking for some stalemates. He's hunting for some stalemates here. It's the one thing he's got left to play for. And Jay is even teasing him. Jay is playing with his food, promoting a bunch of pawns. So stalemate is on the table here, but Jay is too good for that. And after a few moves, it's checkmate. And unfortunately, our hero Ross the Boss goes down. And a wonderfully played game by Jay, where Jay was actually losing at one point. But in the end, he pulled through and got the win. So I hope you guys enjoyed this game, the one and only Stafford Gambit of this series, which was a very, very exciting game featuring a super cool moment. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you're enjoying the content, feel free to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and come watch me live, twitch.tv/diamondcutter1, and I will see you guys on the next one.